last night at dinner time during grace, my son couldn't pray for the food because he was so busy asking God to protect us so that people wouldn't kill us because we're Black. So I got real vocal in me. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm okay. I'm not. When January 6th was happening, we were on a call and, the phones start going off and they're trying to have a business as usual. And I said, I won't sit on this. I'm getting off. I'm getting off of here. This is craziness. And I got off the meeting. So yeah, I just got sick of begging to matter. And I decided I was just going to matter. I'm not begging you to see me. I'm just going to be over here being me.
Welcome to The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. This podcast is more than storytelling, it's archival justice. For too long, the voices of Black educators who have left traditional spaces in education have been silenced, dismissed, or left out of the record. Here, we reclaim that narrative. Every interview is a living archive capturing the wisdom, resilience, and truth of Black educators who have shaped classrooms, communities, and generations. Together, we name the challenges, racial battle fatigue, systemic inequities, the weight of caring too much, but we also honor the brilliance and joy that Black educators bring, the creativity, the innovation, the care, and the deep legacy of resilience. Each episode is both a testimony and an offering, an act of preservation for those who came before, and a guide for those still walking this path today. By listening, you are helping to ensure that these stories are not lost, but held, celebrated, and passed forward. So take a breath, settle in, and join us as we honor the past, uplift the present, and reimagine the future of education together. All right, folks, welcome back to The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. It's me, your host, Dr. Asia. And, folks, this next guest, when we met up, she said something to me. She said, I'm not even going to give away what she's doing, what she's up to, but it's going to be a treat to listen and get a notebook for this one. We're talking about, of course, an exit interview, but some ancestral healing work. I'm really excited to hear and share this information with you all. So make sure that you're listening and ready to take notes. But before we get into all that, welcome to the show, Dr. Jeanine L. Williams.
Hello. So excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. Finally, we got a chance to get on the calendar. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm Dr. Jeanine L. Williams, right? And I am a retired educator. I worked in higher education for 20 plus years as a professor, as a department chair. I also did work as a consultant. I had my own consulting practice at that time. I have always been interested in education as a liberation, right? So liberation theology, I'm a preacher's daughter too. So liberation theology and empowerment and what that means in educational spaces. Really always was big on literacy, still am big on literacy and what it means to be literate and what it means to be able to stand firmly in your own kind of linguistic repertoire and be able to use that even in academic spaces. And so my work has always been about empowerment and diversity, equity, inclusion, all the things that people have tried to be crazy about now. I've always been about that. I'm always going to be about that.
Hold on. I'm sorry to cut you off, but folks who are listening to this on like Spotify, our podcast, if you're not watching on YouTube, my girl just leaned up and gave us a full on like diversity, equity, and inclusion, full chest. Yes. Continue.
Yes. Well, so that's it. I mean, that's me. And in the work that I do now as an ancestral medicine woman, which I know that we'll get into deeply, is just a further extension of that. As I was transitioning out of the education space, I was really thinking about what does empowerment look like? And there is something about knowing who you are, understanding your sovereignty, your power, being able to use what grows in this earth to sustain yourself and those you love. People can't take that from you. I always thought people can't take your education from you, and they can't. Oh, we baby. But it's something different where you can take care of your health, spirit, mind, and body with what grows from this earth. And so I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, because you're giving away the whole show. Yeah, I'm loving this. And the ancestral medicine woman, like I said, when we connected a while back, I need to have you share your wisdom with the audience. So this is such a treat. We'll jump into the first question. Tell us your education journey. How did you know that being in education was for you?
It was something that I actually kind of fell into. Now, I will say that I have always loved school. School was a safe space for me. I never much saw myself as athletic or anything like that, but I was always smart. Like I could use my brain. Being alone with my thoughts was always my favorite thing to do, still one of my favorite things to do. And so education provided a good space for that. As a preacher's daughter, like I was always fascinated or drawn to church and just the expression that I got to see there. And so education allowed a space for me to exhibit or, kind of flex some of my identity, in that space as a professor. I always used to say that, that was my pulpit. My classroom was my pulpit, and that my work that I did in the classroom was just as important as the work that was being done in the church behind, in the church pulpit. How did I know education was for me? I never set out to be an educator. As a matter of fact, if someone would offer me, oh, you should be a teacher. No, I shouldn't. That was not something that was good for me. But when I was in college, I remember always wondering why the students who looked like me were always in the developmental classes, or there was always something there, and it wasn't that they or we are not smart. And I didn't have the words for it, but I knew that there was a problem with representation, that we weren't getting our just due, that our ways of knowing, being, and doing were not valued, honored, respected. And that's what I wanted to bring to the space. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. I was a peer counselor for academic support, like an academic bridge program one summer while I was in college. And it just kind of went from there. My pathway was very different. I was a psychology major. I have my master's in human development. Okay, I have a little friend here. I don't know what this is about. I have a master's in human development, but I focused on like the psychology behind education. So things like academic identity and all of that. And then from there, worked in those academic support programs, academic bridge programs, which ultimately led me to get my PhD in language literacy and culture. And I selected reading because part of like these bridge programs is always a critical reading course or reading course. And I'm thinking like, they know how to read. Like, what is this? What does this really mean? So that became a space to really interrogate this thing called literacy, and also things like language, and make sense of the ways in which Black folk, I'm just going to say, put out people who look like me, the ways in which in education spaces, we are marginalized, seen as less than. And it's not that we are less than. As a matter of fact, we're very capable, sometimes even more sophisticated, right? Let's be real. But how we present does not align with what's considered acceptable in those spaces. And so I just wanted to be an advocate and really kind of tear that down in my own way in the space that I had. So yeah, that's how I got into it. That's how I found my way. So it was kind of a sorted path. It wasn't I always knew I wanted to be an educator. I want justice. And I don't like how y'all treating us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me come in here.
I feel like there's so many of us who go into education because we notice inequities as children, as high school students. Like, why are these kids going this direction and these kids going this other direction? Or why can't my brother read and he's in third grade? Or like, why are these disciplinary actions happening to folks of color or students of color? And we decide to jump in there and see what's going on. Yeah, I appreciate that. So you were a professor. Tell us about that part of your journey. Because you said I was a professor, I did this, I moved up, I did. So we want to hear about that as well.
Yeah, so I started teaching part-time. Like when I was over an academic bridge program, part of what I had to do was also teach this developmental reading course, which I knew nothing about. I was not good at it. I was terrible at it, to be honest with you, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was looking at it from a deficit perspective, because that's the way it was presented to me. And I remember I So I continued to teach reading part-time. That kind of became my thing. And in one of my part-time jobs, Dr. Elizabeth Peavy, she is an ancestor now, but shout out to Dr. Peavy because she is the one who introduced me to liberation, theology, Septima Clark. I mean, and really challenged the way in which I was teaching this reading course. And she was a mentor to me. And then that led me just kind of on. I eventually got a full-time position at a community college teaching developmental reading.
Can you back up a little bit and tell us what that conversation was like with her? Like, how did she come to this, like, hey, I know you probably think that you're doing okay, or maybe you don't, but how did she have that conversation with you that got you to shift the way that you were thinking about the work that you were doing?
I was frustrated. And I remember Dr. Peavy at the time, she was a full-time faculty member at a community college. And I remember just sharing my frustration as a part-time instructor. Like they gave us the material and I hated that stuff. And I felt like I'll do what you told me to do. I'll follow this curriculum, but it's not connecting. And so I was very, very frustrated. And she just was sharing that with her. And she talked to me about the work that she had done with adult literacies and like Paulo Freire and that. And I was very discouraged. And I think I was thinking about, I need to do something else, or maybe I need to just work with people who were smarter. I just, I didn't know what. And I remember her saying, we got to stay in here because that's how she moved. We got to stay in here because, these are our babies, right? And we got to pull out we've got to pull out what's already in them. This system don't pull out what's in them. We need, so she just spoke life to me and encouraged me to stay the course. But hey, listen, we here for a reason. And this is how we need to look at it. Here's how we can pull out what it is that resonates with our babies. That's the way she put it. Yeah. So it was my frustration and her, I'm feeling her. Oh, Lord. Stealing her, call me home to myself. She wouldn't let me because I was backing away. And she was like, oh, oh, no. These are babies, and just really giving me that call, that beautiful and sacred call. I feel like I'm about to get tears. I haven't thought about or wrote about Dr. Peavy until anyway. But anyway, so that was it. That was it. Because she was so smart and so, like, why was she at a community college, right? And again, because that was my thinking, like, she could be anywhere. She could be anywhere. But now I know why she wasn't there. Because she was too smart. Yeah, she was too liberated, honey. They don't know what to do with us when we that.
Okay, first of all, shout out to our ancestor, Dr. Peavy. And what you just said was so brilliant of like, we do get into this. Why are you at this school? You should be at an X. Why is it like, why community college? You could be at anywhere. Or why would you teach in this neighborhood? You could be anywhere. And like you said, it's exactly because of the liberatory thinking that people have, that they find a place to tuck back in and do the work and be essentially left alone to do that work. And I don't mean like in solitude, but like, let her do her thing. Let her, right? Let her call her people. And I love that, calling me back to myself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that, first of all. And then, so you talk about that you went to a community college. So did you go where she went, or what was the situation with that?
So I was at one community college working part-time, and then something opened at another community college. And that's where I ultimately got the job. And I remember I applied for that job 3 times and twice got turned down. And I remember Dr. Peavy, I'm remembering all of this now. This is such a beautiful thing. Thank you, Dr. Peavy. I remember her telling me, stay encouraged. Like, don't matter. Go again. Apply again. Go again. That job is yours. Like, she wouldn't let me give up. So even getting into that position was such a challenge because I felt like I was constantly proving myself. How I finally got the full-time job was they needed a full-time temp. And it was like a 1-year appointment. And so I did that. So that's how I got in. And when it came time for them to convert that full-time job, that temporary job into like a permanent, they made me apply again.
I believe
and interview again. and do my mock lesson again. And I remember the day that I had that interview and had to do this mock lesson. I had taught 4 classes back to back. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to do a mock lesson. Y'all could have followed me around all day to see that I know how to do this job. Y'all playing with me. you know, but I went in there, you know how we do. I went in there and I took nothing for granted. I went in there and I sat up in their faces like they didn't know me. Like, like I haven't been doing this job all year. And I did my best. So I got that. Yeah. So that's how I kind of got started. But there, it was even trying to get in was so demoralized. I have to be completely honest. But if it wasn't for Dr. Peavy, like that's your job, you know? And just kind of, again, calling me back to myself and helping me to remember.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know there are people who may be listening to this and thinking, like, I've applied for that same job multiple times, or had to apply for my own job after year at a school or wherever they were. And like you said, it's so demoralizing. Like, that I know how to do this job and better than anyone else, but just this like proving and showing over and over again.
Yes. Yeah. And I always felt like they wanted to break me, right? That was the problem. I want to say throughout my career was that I was too competent and too confident. So there was grief in, being hazed in that way. But let me tell you where the gratitude comes in. Y'all ain't give me nothing, which means you can't take nothing from me. So here I am fully in my sovereignty. Like you didn't get me in. Like, no, I was fully qualified. I fought and earned every bit of this. So once I was in that position, you can't be trying to rig me and roll me and all of that. No, because this is my job. So yeah. So it's like that conundrum. It's a blessing and a curse, right? That competence and that confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something interesting that, like Dr. PB said, like it's your job, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going to just get a red carpet to that. Right. And it's something to be said about that experience. Like, what was it about that experience that helped to shape your whole experience going forward, helped you to see something very clearly that you wouldn't have seen without that experience? And I don't want to make it seem like this was a good thing, because we don't want to start saying white supremacy culture is a blessing. And not even a but. And like this, Dr. PV saw it. She lived it. I'm sure she had to apply for lots of things multiple times or show up in the positions were hers when she did that 3rd or 4th or 5th time. So I appreciate you sharing that. How long were you at that school? Did you transfer, or tell us more about that?
So I was there for 8 years. And then I got approached by a 4-year university, because I had done, so in my 8 years there, I had developed a model, an accelerated literacy model. So it used to be like the students would have to take developmental reading and developmental writing. They had like 3 and 4 levels of that. So by the time they got to so-called college ready or college level courses, a lot of them had dropped out, stopped out. It was so we had an accelerated or academic literacy program where we combined reading and writing, right? And so instead of students having like a pathway of 3 reading courses and 3 writing courses, we got it down to like 1 5-credit course. Like, let's just try this and let's see. And so that was very successful. And that is the way that developmental reading and writing is done nationally now. And that's just the way it's done. But it wasn't that way, at this kind of these pioneering moments. And so this 4-year institution, they were their open access institution, and they didn't know what to do with their developmental students. And they wanted someone to come in and really take the lead on 1st-year writing, redesign it, make some recommendations and then redesign it and all of that. And so going back to this experience of basically having to like cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, and perform and so much for this job.
Not cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. And again, the people on Spotify can't see that she threw her elbows up and did some little dance. Y'all missing it if you're not on YouTube, but go ahead.
So I went into the interview for this university. Like, I was very confident and very clear. Here's what I'm suggesting for you all, right? And if you really want someone to come in and to rework this thing, this is what I'm suggesting. This is the way to do it. This is what I'm going to be able to promote. And I remember at each point in my interview, even talking to the dean, the panel, everything, I was very clear. I'm not coming here if y'all going to fight me. Okay. So I'm telling you, I've looked at what you need and I'm telling you, this is what you need. I got the track record to prove it. I got the research data to back it up. Y'all call me. I don't need you. Like, let's just be clear. I'm not coming here to fight with folks. So if you offer me this job, no, like Jeanine, Dr. Jeanine Latoya Williams is coming in here in full force. If you don't want her, leave me be. I'm good over here, because I had going up through the ranks. I was at the top of my game at the community college, hard earned, so to move somewhere else, don't think for 1 second I'm coming here to be fighting and fussing with y'all. Not doing it. And so they offered me the position and was like, okay, let's come on in here, do it. So I will say there was a confidence that I had, a sovereignty that I had developed through all of those experiences.
I was just going to say, because the way you described your 3 interview, like all the beginnings, and then like, you having to be pulled by your baby hairs back by Dr. Peavy. And now you're like, don't bother me if you're not going to be serious about this work. And that 8 years that you needed to, like you said, come to yourself. I love this.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that job was much bigger. And that job when I first started, I had 200 faculty under me. I was in charge of the first year writing curriculum, stateside, Europe and Asia. I mean, it was a big operation, so yes. I mean, so it was an amazing experience. And then, so it was so many different things I had to navigate to even create this new model and implement it. And when I tell you, I got there in December and so like that spring semester, I took making sure it was together. And by fall, we launched. Like, that was even that was unheard of. But again, I had asked for the space, leave me alone, let me do this. And so we got it done. I mean, and that was it. And we moved forward. Now, there were points in the process while I was, putting the plan in place and all that, where there were some who would start trying to push. But confident, Jeanine, Dr. William, I would say, okay, so you told me that the babies need help with the writing. Do they need it or not? Because I feel like you fighting me. And I would say it just like that. Like, what I mean? Because y'all told me this is what you needed. This is what I'm doing. So did something change? And we need to pivot that because otherwise I don't know why you're here. I meant that. I said it. I mean, I meant that from my soul. You hear me? And, give me space. And I remember at one point my supervisor, are you sure this is going to work? I said to her, I'll bet my job on it. And she was like, oh, that's really confident. Yes. So get out of nowhere and let me do it. So I showed up so different. When I talk about that concept of sovereignty, like that embodiment of sovereignty, I meant it. And they did give me my space. And we had a very successful redesigned first year writing curriculum, which is still in place. So I started December 2016 is when I took that job. So we launched it in fall of 2017. Yeah. So I took kind of that spring semester in 2017 to really fine tune it, build the courses, train the faculty, socialize the faculty, because this was a very different way of doing things. But at the heart of even like the work that I did at the community college and the redesign for this program, it wasn't just structural, but it was really how we approached teaching academic literacy in a way that really pulled out, right, the students' natural abilities to read, write, and think and communicate critically. Like that is natural. Like we don't have to keep putting up all these barriers. We don't have to make everything so technical in terms of all these technical terms and all of this performance to where now the students are afraid of their own language and something that's very natural to them. We are not going to be hazing students and oppressing students around their language, right? Because I understood at that point, when you're talking about somebody's language, you're talking about somebody's mama, right? That's how our language is us. So how do we invite that into an academic space? How do we allow a student to move freely with that and add some things to their repertoire? Okay, there's a certain way that academic settings expect us to present, and to use language. All right, we'll teach you that too. But you also can bring with you your full linguistic repertoire. So yeah, it was interesting work. It was interesting times. So I'm grateful for that space. I'm grateful for the sovereignty that I had developed. And I know that, again, that is when I talk about Dr. PB calling me back to myself, that's what she was calling. She saw it. She knew it.
And I'm thinking about all the students who, because you're in higher education at this point. These are not high school students who are needing this support. So all the students who were not giving the proper education in their K-12 experience, and they decided to bet on themselves to go back to school, despite knowing, many of them, that they were given the short end of the stick. And your programming at the community college you were in, and then moving on, your programming provided people the opportunity to learn what they needed to learn quickly so that they can go on and graduate from college. And that was the point. And like, it's just coming to me that, and again, I can imagine how many students across the globe have had a chance to have the opportunity. And I'm just going to keep going back to it because you applied 3 times. Right? And that you didn't say like, this is a failure on me, or I'm not doing enough. That you had someone who was like, absolutely not, but like, let's get this done. And like how much we need community when we're doing the hard work, even if we don't realize that we need community when we're doing the hard work. And so, yeah, I just wanted to pause and say that for a moment.
So yeah, I'm very proud of those experiences and the space I had to make an impact that I will never understand the full magnitude of.
Yeah. You were there for how long?
I was there, 2016 until, was it almost 8 years? 2024 is when I think I was just a few months shy of my 8. Let me find out 8 is my number. What's up?
Okay. Okay. Write that down somewhere.
Yeah. So my time in higher education needed to come to an end.
Let me ask you 2 questions. Was this the like official end? Because I'm going to ask the next question, which is, what helped you decide that it was time to hang it up? I mean, 16 years of phenomenal work. How did you know like it's time to do something different?
Sovereignty got too big. And I felt the system kind of, caving in on me. And let's see, how can I even approach this? So being department chair, when I left the community college to go to the university, I was the program director, which is the equivalent of like a department chair. And when the administration of the institution started shifting and, we were being asked to do things that I didn't really professionally agree with, that I didn't feel like was right for our students, I spoke up, you know what I mean? But it came a point where I got tired of fighting. And not that I was giving up. It was like, yeah, y'all not about to wear me out. So I remember talking to my vice dean at the time, my supervisor, and I told her, I said, I got probably about 2, maybe 3 semesters. I'm about to be a whole problem. I need you all to let me go back to being faculty and let's find somebody else to do this role. So we did. They arranged that. And as a faculty member, I was farther away from all the higher ups and all of that was going on. So I was able to disconnect in some ways that were healthy for me. But I also was able to be more vocal, in ways that were healthy for me. So I did that for about 3 years. And, just being a faculty member. And when they were making these changes and treating people in any kind of way, and we sitting in faculty meetings, I was the one asking, okay, so what are we doing in terms of community care? You just sat here in this meeting and told us that you had to let 5 of our colleagues go out of nowhere. Our head is spinning. What's up? How are y'all taking care of us? And why is this always happening? And I'm the one on the Zoom call with, the whole department. I mean, like the whole school, the whole school of, well, we weren't the school of, our school of within the university saying, hey, your silence isn't going to save you. Speak up. Because, we would be on Zoom and people be quiet chatting me. Thank you, Jeanine. I'm always sharing your voice. And I said, and so I would say, I don't need your private messages. Speak up. Y'all on here private messaging me while I'm go out on the limb with me, right? And so, yeah, and got to a point where I got sick of begging to matter. And certain things I can recall that were really pivotal. It was around the time of George Floyd. And I remember we were in a meeting and they were thinking about whether the university, we should put out a statement to our students. And there was ambivalence. Well, I don't know. And, we don't want to offend. And I remember asking, well, who will you offend by taking a stand against anti-Blackness? I remember being, and then no one had an answer for me. And so I got off the call. I remember being, all this was going on in the world. And I remember we getting on these meetings, these Zoom meetings, and people are talking about, oh, well, what happened and how's everybody doing? And I remember I said, I'm not doing well. Last night at dinner time during grace, my son couldn't pray for the food because he was so busy asking God to protect us so that people wouldn't kill us because we're Black. So I got real vocal in me. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm okay. I'm not. When January 6th was happening, we were on a call and, the phones start going off and they're trying to have a business as usual. And I said, I won't sit on this. I'm getting off. I'm getting off of here. This is craziness. And I got off the meeting. So yeah, I just got sick of begging to matter. And I decided I was just going to matter. I'm not begging you to see me. I'm just going to be over here being me.
I wrote that down. I got sick of begging to matter.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is just so
Yes.
powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. This begging for you to see my humanity.
Right. That you're making decisions on whether or not my humanity warrants a statement. Oh, that's what we doing? You don't deserve me. You don't deserve my brilliance. You don't deserve my presence. You don't deserve anything that I will contribute to this community. You're not my community. You have let me know that when it comes down to it, you don't have my back and you never will. I'm not doing this with you. So I took a time of deep rest where I was very disconnected. I didn't get on any meetings. Oh, Jeanine, we are going to be working on DEI. You want to? Nope, I'm not on no committees. Nope, I'm not reviewing nothing. Y'all figure it out. And in that time, I really just sat with myself. And it was grief. It was a lot of grief because I had given everything.
Yeah.
And my whole identity.
I had to pause for a second. I think about this idea of grief. And I think about how many folks have come on the show and talk about my own experience of realizing the people I've been working with for X amount of years actually don't have my back. They're actually not here for all of us. And then just have I been lying to myself? Has it always been like this? And then for me, it was this embarrassment at first. They were playing in my face and I thought I don't want to say one of them because that's kind of, no, absolutely not. But to at least see me as human. And then to kind of sit in this space, like you said, of grief, of anger and sadness and resentment. And so I totally can resonate with what you're saying. And yeah, and it's how are y'all taking care of us? Right? And the call for community care. And I also want to say that there's folks in the K-12 and ECE 12 space who I think believe that being in higher education is the thing. When I go back and get my doctorate, or I'm going to blah, 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 I'm going to teach at such and such university. And that's where I'm going to be able to make change, or they'll respect me then. And you're not the first person who's worked in higher education who said, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No, it's different, but it's the same intentionally and persistently white supremacist, capitalistic, patriarchal system. You will never get a clean drink of water pouring into a cup made of mud. And that's what it is. It's a cup made of mud. It don't matter. It's going to give you the same thing over and over and over again.
So when you were going through this experience, you talked about your son, you talked about your family. Did you, what was the support that you were receiving from your community? Were you receiving support from your community, from your family, as you were kind of in this last, these moments of grief before you left higher education?
So there was this point of sacred solitude. Like I just needed to, I needed to get my own bearings and just kind of be in my own space. But we did have started this underground group at the university called the Justice Group. And what we did, we met every week and we would just talk about the goings on and compare notes, screenshotting crazy stuff and meetings and all that. And then we started going to the press. So we were like, okay, y'all ain't gonna pay us no attention. I know what you will pay attention to. So we had write-ups in the Chronicle of Higher Education. And so that was a small group. It was myself, one of my colleagues, an Asian American colleague, and two Asian American colleagues, I should say, and then two white ladies, right? And that was care because we would talk about where we were with it, with everything that was going on. And when it came to do the heavy lifting, the white lady, and I say that with so much, they are friends. They would do the heavy lifting. They would say, you can't do this part. Let me do it, or, they did not force us to have to do that work of articulating how we were being assaulted. Like I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to go plead and prove. They would do that work. They would listen to what we said and what we needed, and we would come up with a plan, but they would do the heavy lifting. So that was the care that got me through. And I remember one of the conversations we had is, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? And I remember saying, I would probably do have a coffee house. That's also a bookstore. And we would do lectures and literacy, community literacy and all of that, and started dreaming. And that's where what I do now came out of that conversation. So that was my community care. So we were subversive. We were sticking it to them. Oh, and they would be so frustrated when those articles would come out. Oh. So we did that. But it was also a space for us to love on each other. And let's think about something outside of this too. Let's dream bigger. So that was so pivotal for me at that time. Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, if you want, a little bit about that sacred solitude too, that you mentioned?
Yes. And I didn't know at the time what that meant. I just knew I needed quiet. It was like I was in this free fall, but it was a slow free fall. I couldn't get my grounding. Everything that I thought that I knew about my professional world, about who I was, because my identity was lady. When I tell you, it was no separating it in that. And I remember thinking, gosh, why can't I just let this be a job? That it just never was that for me. I really needed time to get quiet. I was also thinking about how can I get out of this, right? Because that's also something financially, my life was very dependent on that job. And I would just sit out on my deck and just daydream. And I remember one day I called on my grandmama. Can you see her behind me? Yes, right here. My grandma Harris. My grandma Harris had to leave school in 5th grade because she had to work the fields with her family. So she never finished, but she was always one that made sure we had education. And as a matter of fact, I'm Dr. Williams because I was the first grandbaby. She had sons and then she had a bunch of grandsons, and I brought the girls back. She was so excited that my grandmama, she put aside in a certificate of deposit $2,000 for me when I was born. So when I got to the point of going off to college, it had grown to maybe I want to say it was about maybe $10,000. It was a certificate of deposit. And that was what I used to help pay for school. My grandmama, I didn't know this part. Her job, she worked in the laundry room at a hospital where she got paid per piece. Where did that lady get $2,000 from? And where did she know? How did she know? Let me put this aside. When I tell you I'm Dr. Williams, because she had the forethought. So I remember sitting out on my deck and I said, Grandmama, I had never thought about calling on the ancestors. That wasn't my sensibility at that time. And I just said, what did you know? Tell me what you knew in order to make this way for me, right? She was a single mother, right? Which I'm a divorced mother, and situation is I'm a single mother, right? Of 2 boys. all these ways. I'm like, what did you know? You knew something. You felt something. I am me. I'm here in this moment because of you. And I got my direction. So that little by little, what I do now, Ancestors Bosom, which I'm sure we'll talk about some, is that's how that was birthed. So that sacred solitude, like just questioning everything and just realizing there has got to be someone who can give me some advice. There wasn't anyone in my physical reality. Oh, but there was someone in my ancestral reality. There was someone beyond who walked this way in her own way, looked very different, but the crux of the issues were the same. And yeah, and she gave me instruction. And I remember when I got the instruction, I was like, yeah, that's not grandma. That's somebody. I don't know what that is because that don't make no sense. But when I tell you, I did what I was instructed to do, and that is what allowed me to exit.
Right. The way that our grandmothers and the washing clothes being paid per piece. But you know what I also think about? I think about your grandma in that laundry room in the hospital with other Black women in community. And hopefully, and I don't know the situation, but I hope that they had time together in community to be in that room cackling and enjoy and laughing and sharing wisdom. And maybe she got the idea of the certificate of deposit from someone whose son went to school or daughter went to school for fine. Who knows? But that she had this place that was safe for her to share and tell story. And $2,000, that is, yeah, wow.
That's a lot of money in 1978 for somebody getting paid by the piece. Where'd you even get? Listen, talk to most people now and they ain't got $2,000. Full-time salaried folk, PhD'd folk.
There are so many people, I can't even, we'll be all day. Let me just pause. So we're going to get into the embodiment of sovereignty, which you've mentioned a couple of times. We're going to get into the work that you're doing now, but I do want to wrap this particular part of your journey up and asking the question, you were in higher education for a good amount of time. You saw folks come and go. You were in community with people, good folks who wanted to see you thrive and just like your programming thrive and the students thrive. And so looking back on your time and thinking about the Black folks that came and went, whether they were professors or deans or whatever they did, what do you think, and you've kind of shared this a little bit in the stories that you've been telling, but what do you think that higher education spaces can do to retain their Black folks and their faculty and their staff?
I'm pausing because I know what to say, but I just need to make sure it's what I'm going to say. I don't think it's anything that they can do. I think the system is done and it is crumbling. And that was part of my weaving, not to say, oh, screw everybody and y'all can all, but I knew that somebody has to go and birth, like something else has to be built because this is not sustainable and this is collapsing in on itself. The education system, like all of the systems in this country, are intentionally and persistently racist, white supremacist, capitalistic, patriarchal, and built on exploitation. And after time, it's not sustainable. And what we're watching is it collapse in on itself. So does that mean that no one's educated? No, we need to be thinking about what education looks like outside of that system. That system can't save us. The system can't be saved. It cannot be. Community care is going to save us. Standing in our sovereignty is going to save us. Coming home to ourselves, that's what's going to save us. That's the only thing that's going to save us. Envisioning something different and something better, that's what's going to save us. What exactly does that look like? That's for us to decide. Is going to save us. Tapping into that ancestral wisdom. What did they know? And what does that look? Okay, I can take that knowledge, take that wisdom, take that inspiration. What does that look like now? That's it. So there's nothing that they can do to retain them. And anybody staying, you have to swallow yourself. That is how the system is built. And that's not even to sound doom and gloom, but I have just learned to call a thing what a thing is and to speak truth to power. So nothing. It's nothing they can do to retain them.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Ooh. Every voice on the exit interview carries wisdom, resilience, and the reminder that Black educators deserve more than survival. They deserve to thrive. At Lions Educational Consulting, we create the spaces where that wisdom lives on in practice. For individual Black educators, our workshops offer room to breathe, to pause, and to rediscover purpose. For schools and districts, our consulting opens pathways to build equity-centered environments that honor Black educators and ensure they are seen, valued, and supported. These conversations don't stop at the end of the podcast episode. They ripple outward into classrooms, into leadership decisions, and into communities that benefit when Black educators are well. You're already a part of this story just by listening. If you're ready to take the next step, whether as a Black educator seeking wellness or as a leader reimagining your school's future, we'd love to walk with you. Connect with Lions Educational Consulting by connecting with me, Dr. Asia, on LinkedIn, or join me on Instagram. Together, let's transform stories into sustainable change. Now let's get back to the interview. You've talked about Dr. Peavy, you've talked about your grandmother, you've talked about your underground society, your group. There are so many Black folks who have taught us in some capacity. Preschool, kindergarten, in the neighborhood, higher ed, wherever. Are there Black educators that you would like to shout out?
I shout out Dr. Peavy. Our mamas, our aunties, those who didn't get the benefit, right? Using my air quotes here, of formal education. Oh, but they knew so much. And they shared their wisdom even from beyond. I used to have my degrees on the wall behind me. Now I have pictures of my ancestors, my grandmothers and my great-grandmothers, and, and my mother and my great-great-grandmother, because they are the ones. Anything that I am is them. Is them, what they went through, the foundation they laid, in the ways that they still live within and through me. So that's who I want to shout out. There's so many, yes, formal educators, yes, but when I think about what me right now, and actually who I've always been, oh, that's who it's been. It's been my grandmama who had the 5th grade education, who was my greatest teacher, and who I had to call on at 45 when I was trying to figure this thing out. My grandmama transitioned when I was 10, but guess what? That wisdom was here just waiting for me to call on it. So yeah, those are our educators. And that's who we need to start tapping back into. Big Mama and them.
Yeah, and this is a perfect transition because you're talking about the ancestors. You're talking about calling on the ancestral wisdom. So you kind of talked about this earlier. What are you doing now?
What am I doing? Oh my goodness. I'm doing the most juicy, delicious thing that's the most me. So I am an ancestral medicine woman and a spiritual healer. And so what does that mean? So I help people reconnect ancestrally with that ancestral wisdom, that ancestral sensibility. I do that using plant medicine, so different herbal formulations and all of that. And usually when you say plant medicine, people start automatically thinking psychedelics. No disrespect to psychedelics, that's not my calling. I'm talking about teas, tinctures, herbal allies that help us find our way. So reconnecting with earth, reconnecting with spirit, right? And so anything that we are being ailed by has a spiritual origin, and not that, oh, you're sinful, so you're sick. No, not that. But just because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that is what I believe. And tapping into spirit, ancestry is spirit. Tapping into all of that is the only way that we come back to ourselves and can find that kind of that clarity and that way forward. And so that's what I do. I hold space for people, whether it's doing an energy reading, creating a formula for them. Yeah, just, working in all of those different modalities, sometimes laying of hands, like all being a seer, being a knower, like truly, truly tapping in to who I've always been at my core. If I think about it, education was a safe space, right? To, use those gifts or to fulfill that calling. But when education got too small for me, or the system got too small, or I had to break free, and here I am, right? And so standing fully in my sovereignty and helping others as they journey back to their own sovereignty. So that's what I do now, and I love it. It feels so me. That's what I knew to build, thinking about the system in which that I had, invested so much in, realizing, that's not going to be here much longer. In this way, it's not going to save me. So what can I do? And so I work with those who are still working in those systems, because everybody didn't need to leave. I feel like everybody has to find their way. So it's not to say that people who are still in the education system are still, no, they're called to be there. So what can I do as a matriarch in my own right? As a midwife, right? What can I do to support you as you find your way? And so and being in the system, I couldn't do it there. I did everything I could in that space. It was time to be more free, because I can say what needs to be said. Them folks don't have a job to hold over my head. You can't take nothing from me. You ain't give me nothing. Right. And so I can hold space in a way for those who still have to navigate and negotiate that system, and how so it can be both. And you're here, you're called to this space for whatever reason. This is your time to be in there, but you don't have to go it alone. You can be supported. You can be yourself. You can come into your own sovereignty. You can be sovereign. Like, you can be soul led. Like, all of those things can happen in that space. And I, as an ancestral medicine woman, hold space and facilitate that process for people.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
But I want to go back a little bit, because you talked about being a midwife. And what a beautiful analogy. My sister, shout out to China Tolliver, which she listens to my show. My sister does. She was a midwife for a long time, and she lived with me for a little bit. And I remember her getting up at 2:00 in the morning, or going to meet with the family and advocating and saying, like, no, they don't want an epidural, or yes, they want this, and just like being right there as a foundational part of that birthing experience. And so when you talk about being a midwife, I love that analogy. You're like coaching and supporting and putting up boundaries for folks and letting folks in, right? And you remember the plan that we set out to do, and before we got to the hard part. You said before we started pushing that you wanted X, Y, and Z. And so I'm here to make sure that you are able to still do that in the mindset you are in.
Yes, because again, when I realized that something new had to be birthed, well, who's going to help us birth this thing, right? How are we, yes. And I believe that those who still find themselves in that education space, who are still holding the line, who are still advocating for those students, you are needed. Like, you're called for this time. You're equipped to be in that space, right? Because we need you there. And then we also need those of us who decide, okay, I'm going to not even jump ship. I'm going to kind of go out here and start preparing things and getting things ready for you and interceding for you when it's time. I'm going to hold space for you when you need someone to just be present with you, right? To bear witness to your pain. I'm going to be the Dr. Peabody to tell you, that's your job, or, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is that you need. Yes. And so I definitely feel that, that I am helping birthing that, because it's something new and it's something beautiful. It just is. It just is. I will never lose hope on it, ever. I don't care about their system. Let it crumble. It was never for us. We did what we needed to do within it, because that's what we do, right? But here we are, yes. And so we need those of us who have found liberation in a way, right? We found our way out to I'm getting something ready. I'm preparing something, helping prepare as we create something new, something beautiful, something bigger, something ancestral. Oof, I'm excited about it. Yes.
One of the things I'm thinking about, like you said, you're here for the people still doing the work. You and I talked before the session, our interview today, and I really wanted you to be able to come on and talk to Black educators about, you said the teas and the tinctures and different things that people can do. Can you walk us through some things that folks can do Black folks experiencing all of this like trauma and trouble, what can they do to be well? What would you suggest to them? How can they show up as whole as possible? Like, what do you have for them that you can advise them to do?
The first thing that I would say is to know that you are whole. Like there's nothing outside of you that's going to validate you, make you nothing. You are already whole. It's just coming back to that wholeness. Like that's the thing. They distract us with proving ourselves that we don't even realize I already am. Everything I'm using to prove something to you, I already am. Why am I doing this? That's the farce of white supremacy. Don't even get me started. Have you proven that you are who they already know you are? So, yeah, knowing that you are already whole and starting to embody that. What does that look like? Stop giving everybody everything. What are you holding for yourself? How do you hold space for yourself? What's your morning ritual like? How do you get rooted and grounded in you daily? And then be human. Say no. You know, particularly Black folk, Lord, we know how to make a way out of no way, and we tend to make things look easy. Let some stuff fall apart. They cutting funding or they not giving you the resources. Stop making it all just happen anyway. Because you know what they say? Oh, well, yeah, see, they didn't even need it. No, let some stuff fall apart. Pull your energy back. Hold something for yourself. You already hold. Like they count on us to be in fear and to be overgiven and carrying on. Release the fear. I know that's so hard because I need this check or I don't want to let the students down. You can't be the only one caring for the students. Stop being complicit in your own exploitation. We got to start speaking the truth. You want X, Y, and Z, but you have only resourced me for X. That's all you're getting. And you feel bad for the babies. And you're not going to put that on me. That's a different sensibility. But I'm going to tell you, when you are spending time in wholeness and grounding yourself and knowing, and then also we get afraid that if we let the chips fall where they may, that things are going to fall apart. They're not. That lack, scarcity, that's an illusion. It's an illusion. And I know folks feel weird about their ancestors, but let me tell you something. You ain't got to believe in your ancestors. Your ancestors believe in you. So what I'm going to say is there is a whole spiritual realm, right? That holds us and carries us, that co-creates with us. You are not by yourself. You don't have to hold up the world. So whatever you may call it, right? Whatever your sensibility is, your spiritual sensibility, lean into that. Them babies got somebody protecting them too, guy. You know what I mean? Like they have a whole spiritual team. So we sometimes feel like it's us, it's on us. We got to, and again, that is the farce of the system. Let that go. No fear. They're mowing outside. There's no fear, okay? No fear. No fear. Transmute that to love. And even when we spend time in fear, whatever we focus on magnifies. So when we start worrying and we're carrying on, they count on us to worry. They count on us to be fearful. That's how they control us. I know you have felt how they have turned the fear factor up. You almost can't even escape it now. Yes, you can. You better come on back to yourself. You're already whole. They keep trying to trick you out of your wholeness. Stop falling for it. So that's what I would say. And if you need herbal allies to help you with that, things like rosemary, the way that you even nurturing yourself, what are you cooking with? Use your kitchen herbs. You don't even need nothing fancy. Rosemary connects with ancestral remembrance. Rosemary is antibacterial, antiviral. I think of something like holy basil or tulsi. That is a herb that is a good tonic. It helps us stay in balance. Things like cilantro, you know what I mean? Like I'm talking everyday kitchen stuff that'll keep you clean and it'll clear you out and help your mental pathways, your psychic and spiritual pathways to be open so that you can see it'll clear up your intuition so that you can keep your head on a swivel and know what you need to do. You know, so how are we nurturing ourselves, right? Are you eating? Do you eat? Very simple practices that we do to care for ourselves in education we've been pulled out of because we're so busy during our lunch breaks or, we're just running in chaos. So coming back to wholeness, you already whole. Sitting with tea, rituals. Making yourself a cup of tea and say, I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to have it. I don't care how long it takes. Taking back your time. When I think about our enslaved ancestors and the fact that they had no bodily or time or autonomy or very, very limited, whatever. I mean, they make it this. And here we are, as pulled and tight as we feel we have that. Go on and take your time. Stop rushing. Sit with them or sit for them and see what resonates and see how your intuition will open up and see how, things will just start making sense and your path will just be made clear for you. But you're already whole. That was from beyond. Yes, that was some Jeanine, but yeah, that's your big mama talking. That's auntie and them, right? Those are our forefathers. That's what runs through our veins. That's who we are.
Yeah, that's who we are. Again, coming back to your wholeness, remembering who you are, taking care of yourself, the everyday things, eating, drinking water, stuff like that. So that being said, for you, what does it mean to be well?
To be operating in the fullest expression of my power and sovereignty. That's what it is. To knowing that I don't lack anything. Remembering that there is nothing outside of me. Everything I need, I already am. It is just coming back to this to me. So if anything is out of balance in my physical body, remembering I'm whole and how do I get back to that balance, Jeanine? The body is designed to heal itself, to stay whole, period. It's designed that way. How can I work with that instead of working against it? So that's wellness for me, just being fully in my power and my sovereignty to always be expanding, feeling expansive. Like that's usually my test of anything. If this is good for me, do I feel like I'm shrinking and swallowing myself? Or am I contracting? Right? Everything should be more and more, bigger, expansive. And overflow, right? Giving from that space, existing from that space, being in that space. Oh, that's wellness to me. Yes. At its core, that is wellness to me.
Thank you so much. And if people want to work with you, want to connect with you, can you tell us again the name of your business, how they can find you, where they can find you so that we can spread this and we can take care of ourselves?
So my business is Ancestors Bosom. That's the name of it. And I came up with that name because I thought of all of the love and knowledge and wisdom that the ancestors hold within their bosom. I also thought about when they would give you a big hug and pull you into their bosom is that it is a coming home to all of that, a reclaiming and reconnecting with all of that. Ancestorsbosom.com is the website. I offer free consultations. Maybe you don't even know where to begin, what you need from me. I do free consultations. I do custom formulas. I have one-on-one containers for those who want to, a journey back to wholeness, spirit, mind, and body. I always start with spirit because when we can get the spirit aligned, the mind gets aligned and the body always follows. So you can find me on Instagram at Ancestors Bosom. I'm on LinkedIn, Ancestors Bosom, Jeanine Williams. But the best place is probably my website because you can click and get right on my calendar and you can see what I offer as well, see what my offerings are. Learn more about me and just connect. But I'd love to hold space. Like that's something I love to do. And so I know sometimes we're like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to bother. No, come. Because even if we just sit for that free 20 minutes, you'll leave different. You'll feel better. You'll know something. You'll be more connected. So I love to hold space, especially for educators, Black educators. Yes, come on home. Ancestors Bosom is waiting for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeanine. This has been a blessing, folks. I hope that you all took something away from this. My notebook is full. So many good, beautiful nuggets I've received from this. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your time. Folks, connect with Dr. Jeanine. She's doing great work. She's supporting community. Like she said, 20 minutes free couldn't hurt. And you've already got a sample from this podcast episode of what she could bring to your life. So we just thank you so much for coming on the show, and you have a great rest of your day. And folks, take care of yourselves, eat your food, drink your water, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Asia. It's been a pleasure.
Same. Peace. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. Every story shared here is a reminder that our wellness matters and that thriving in education is possible when we create spaces of care and belonging. If today's conversation spoke to you, we'd love to keep in touch. You can sign up for our newsletter at exitinterviewpodcast.com or connect with me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on upcoming workshops, consulting opportunities, and ways we're transforming stories into solutions through Alliance Educational Consulting. And before you close out, take a deep breath. Remember that caring for yourself isn't extra, it's essential. Whether you're an educator seeking rest or a school leader reimagining support, you're part of this growing community of care.